Welcome to the Game On podcast. Tonight, Geelong cause a power failure at the Adelaide Oval. The Heaney hanger in the thriller at the SCG. And the SANFL finals hitting fever pitch with a couple of Magarey medalists last night. Let's do this. All right, welcome to the Game On podcast. My name's Pete. Once again, Malcolm is joining me here in the studio, and we'll start off as per usual, mate. You're good for the week.
Oh, Harry Boyd and Will Snelling. I'm really glad too. They both polled roughly the numbers they should have polled. Both dominated games, especially obviously seeing a lot more of Nord, and I couldn't believe another award where Boyd didn't get anywhere near as many votes. And I said from watching there were at least 8 games where he was clearly best on ground. And I was really glad that he did get 8 best on grounds.
Yep.
Where I thought he was easy and he could have easily got a few more. So I think it's the most dominant season I've seen from a Nord player since Michael Ocean in 1981. So that's I thought he should have won it convincingly. But I'm really glad that Will Snelling's a quality person. There's a lot of respect for him around the traps. Probably a bit disappointing in the finals. He probably didn't have the impact as much. He didn't get touches which hurt the opposition in the finals. So, but Boyd, he's just, this year's just, there was one game where he had 16 clearances himself, where it was just ridiculous numbers. And
were you surprised that they both didn't poll in the last round?
When Snelling, the word was around he'd had an average game.
Yep.
And so he hadn't polled. We're thinking, Boyd, he's a chance for a vote in the game against Woodville West Torrens, but not a definite. And at that stage, and I knew with him that he would have been thinking, this is great, I get to share the medal. And look, I just love the bloke in terms of just little things. So the last minor round game, Nord have played, they've beaten Woodville West Torrens, they've got the minor premiership. And all the other Nord guys were basically thinking of that. Now, that game was the Inclusive League Grand Final followed. So Kilburn playing Athelston. Congratulations to Athelston in the end there.
Yes.
But Kilburn running on the ground. Boydie was the one guy leaning over, giving them all high fives. And I'm thinking, come on, guys, think a bit more here, join in. Eventually they did. But again, it was Harry Boyd thinking first. Always thinking of others before himself. And that's him as a person. His research on opponents is staggering. In fact, probably bears more on the manic side of things. Because the first ever time I met him, well done, Rory, and he's looking at his phone. I'm like, come on, boy, you can go to Butte here. And then I'd been told how bad he, and then I've worked out, I've said, you're looking up Brooksby for next week, aren't you? And he went, yeah, what can you tell me, Malcolm? So there it was within an hour of the game. He's already thinking of next week's opponent. So he is the ultimate professional. Rap for Will Snelling as well. And then, of course, ironically, as the Nord guys were leaving, I'm watching it, he quickly got it on the Sandover and Nick Rokar, his fellow mate from Shepparton, as joint winner of the Sandover as well. So a great night for Nord and an unbelievable night for Shepparton. I reckon the pubs in Shepparton would have done a huge trade in the next 24 hours.
It'll be a week-long celebration for both of those players. All right, mate, I think you've covered probably your good and my good all in the one opening segment there. So let's get into Around the Grounds.
Around the Grounds.
All right, and as per usual, we're going to talk a bit more on the SANFL, which we've already done a bit there, but we're going to talk more specifically about the games there. We're going to look at the AFLW and a retiring legend. Instead of legends this week, just the one. So we'll follow that one through. But we'll kick off with the AFL and Port Adelaide last weekend. Hugely disappointing night for the Power and once again failed to turn up when it counted.
Yeah, quite incredible that I think we all thought for the game, Port in September, but their one record reasonable side was against Geelong. I think they'll get over the line here. But at the very worst, you thought it'd be a close game.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, the scores and 20 points at halftime, Butters has gone off, and then it just snowballed. And they just weren't even remotely competitive.
Well, they weren't
after
switched
that.
on, were they?
Oh,
It was
bizarre.
early on. It just looked like Geelong, and since then it's come out that Dangerfield gave a little bit of a wink and a nod to Scotty there, saying, no, we're up and about, ready to go tonight. And it showed early on, and that cascading pressure kept coming and coming and coming, and then eventually...
Quite bizarrely, the margin actually flattered Port.
Yep.
Like Geelong could have easily given that magical number of 119 another go.
Well, it might have even been higher, but Geelong winning by 84 points there. Questions being asked of so many. Where does this lead? And now into the finals for this week against Hawthorn.
Yeah, it is interesting. There's been a bit of flashlight put on Connor Rosie, and we're wondering if he's carrying injury because his positioning a couple of times was poor, was bizarre for a guy who's a very good player. Butters is going to go into the game at the very least very, very sore, and you'd think Hawthorn will target him a bit and that sort of thing. Look, but also I want to have a crack at three coaches from the weekend. Port Adelaide starting Horn Francis on the bench did not come on to the 7-minute mark in both the first and second quarters. They're 3 goals down when he comes on. He kicks a goal just before and involved in one of the others. So he's got a score, assist, and a goal before quarter time, 3 goals each. Now, surely he starts second quarter. No, he's on the bench again.
Yep.
Now, I'll tell you now, if I'm coaching against Port Adelaide, the one thing I don't want to see is Horn Francis even one out playing him deep. Who do we put on him? No, they've gone with the tried and true Dixon. Blitzhalves goes there. You can just go with your set defence. Why in the hell they didn't start Francis? And if they didn't want to start him in the midfield, he starts at full forward. I couldn't believe that. Then you had Friday night where Ugle Hagel started on the bench for Western Bulldogs.
Before you go on there, I've got a little bit of audio from Kenny. It's a very short piece here, but listen to this and give me your thoughts. I've got my own thoughts on it as well.
Yeah, look, we're really confident about what Charlie brings to our football team, and he's really important. I've said that plenty of times. So yeah, we've got great confidence in him, and you know he's a real presence. You know, he's a significantly important player for us. It's not by marks and kicks and goals. It's more around contests, and you know we all get reminded this time of the year that it's a contest game, and we've had great build-in for contests. Charlie's ready to go.
So obviously, Kenny talking about bringing Charlie in. Look, I'll give you my thoughts on it, but I'm interested to hear your thoughts first.
Sadly, Father Time's caught up. The game's passed him by. All very well and good, finals is a contest, but he couldn't get to the contest.
Yep.
There's a distinct difference. He's not allowed to play with a motorbike to manage to get on it to get to the contest. No, the game's gone. He's gone.
So my question mark about Dixon there is that coaches can sometimes fall in love with certain players, and he does tend to get a bit better run than some other players, not only Port Adelaide, but...
all coaches are guilty of it.
Yep. Yeah. Do we see that being changed this week, or do they stick fat and go, you guys messed it up last week, it's time to fix it up this week?
I don't think Dixon can play. I think he's got to be dropped. You've got to play Todd Marshall or Lord in front of him, I would think.
Is that a horses for courses this week against Hawthorn, though? Or is it just purely a case of he can't go?
I think he can't get to the and there's one thing, Geelong ran him off their legs, so what the hell are Hawthorn going to try and do? You know? The pensioners ran him off their legs in terms of Geelong, the older side. Well, what are the Hawks as the young kids going to try and do? So I think out of that, he's not... For Dixon to play, he's got to take 5 or 6 marks and kick 3 or 4. Well, he hasn't done that for a while. And I think realistically, sadly, he's a great competitor, great warrior, but I think the game's gone past him.
All right, some big questions. A lot of questions need to be asked of Port Adelaide. Where to from here? What are your thoughts on the Butters injury? It didn't look, it looked innocuous, but from all reports, he was carrying it from the week before or a couple of weeks ago against Freo, but then he goes out and plays golf and shoots a personal best or a pretty good round of golf, and then comes out on the Thursday night and doesn't perform.
I think that he obviously done a fair bit. I don't get why at halftime Port have made the decision to sub him. Well, why is he sitting in the back watching the game? Send him off to hospital to get checked out. It didn't make sense for him to be sitting at the back. Well, why have you done that? If he'd been sent straight to hospital,
So
that justifies that. Now, if it then comes back, well, no, we thought preliminary testing and all that, there probably was going to be a crack there. He couldn't breathe, rah, rah, rah. Well, if he can't breathe, get the guy to hospital.
Yep.
I just couldn't,
It seemed an odd decision all round.
Well,
Is it a case the Petrarca thing has scared a few? Don't take the risk, get him off?
Yeah, but then why not send him to hospital? Surely then...
So the counter-argument, yep.
The bit there with Petrarca in the end, where the controversy is still coming out now is the mixed messages which got sent medically and why he was at the airport and why he wasn't in intensive earlier. So they got... It was too late. He couldn't even have a general anaesthetic. Well, surely if you're going to go, shit, let's not do that. We can't risk that. We'll send someone to hospital.
Absolutely. All right, I've got a couple of other names on the list here. Connor Rozee, you did sort of flag it a little bit earlier. Where do you see him being at?
You wonder if he's carrying an injury as well because there's no burst there. He's all class at his top. His speed out of stoppages is as good as anyone. His balance and all that side of things. But at 15 touches, had very little influence on the game. So there's question marks. As we said last week, the monkey on the back and the gorilla. Well, the gorilla, the whole bloody zoo, there's the tiger. They're running on the ground. They might not be allowed on the ground because there'll be way too much where they're carrying the whole bloody zoo out there.
Weight restrictions.
We know there's no zoo left over on Frome Road at the moment.
Absolutely.
It's all at Alberton.
Absolutely. Horn Francis is another name I've got on my list, but I think that's a case of he can't just do it all himself.
He was still pretty reasonable of that. And again, he spent 15 minutes, or if not longer, off the ground. So he spent the majority of one quarter off the ground, which is just bloody ridiculous.
Is it a case he might be carrying a little bit of injury? Or do you then swing him up forward knowing that 80% is better than him sitting on the bench?
As I said, if I'm playing against Port, the one thing I don't want to see is Horn Francis out the goal square.
Yep. So. And we've obviously talked about Dixon. What did you think of Drew? A bit thumbly, just, the occasion maybe got the better of him a little bit?
It may have, and he's not the first person to do that. He won't be the last.
Yep.
He may pick the first ball cleanly this week and away he goes. So we just don't know. But, the Hawthorn Mosquito fleet, considering Port's, in losing Houston and Farrell, there is a big question mark on their small defenders. Lockie Jones was disappointing. Fumbly as well. Not great defensively.
Yep.
So the Geelong Smalls and Murtagh, Stengel cut them to pieces. Well, this week Moore, Ginnivan and Watson, the Wizard, and I will give the Hawthorn supporters, that was bloody funny. I'll give them that.
Yep.
We'll get to that later.
Yep.
But But I think Frost has been very good for Hawthorn this year. He's a big out. Mackenzie's out as well.
Yep.
It looks like Day won't come up.
Yep.
So
we'll cover that one a little bit more in a minute. Yeah. But obviously Port Adelaide have got their problems. And again, the heat comes on Hinckley. And is it fair considering their few finals losses have been by an average of 56 points? That's a damning statistic.
Yeah, and I think you can make the case that he's actually almost overachieved with that list. There is very few real A graders, and considering they've got one of their best 3 or 4 in Houston out, and they haven't got a huge number, that maybe that's a lot. Him and Farrell are just bigger than we realised.
Well, we'll stick with Houston. The rumours just keep coming
about
that he may be off to Carlton.
That's got to mention.
I find that. From a Carlton supporter, I'm head over heels going, I think you need to get some quality in the door. But do Port Adelaide let him go, considering this is a bit of an audition of what it's going to be like if he does go? Yeah,
I think there's going to be a fair bit of water to go into that bridge yet. I still think, he's got 3 more years in a contract, so Port have got all the aces to demand 2 first-rounders, all that sort of things. I'm not sure that any other club's going to be able to manage to do that. So I still think he'll end up still at Port.
Yep. So, and Farrell, obviously, a huge injury for them in the context of things. Any selection sort of changes that you can see apart from Dixon, which we've already talked about?
Well, I thought Dylan Williams would have played, so I think that's a distinct possibility. You know, Marshall's played really very little footy for a couple of months, so whether they go Marshall or Lord or whether they stick with Dixon, but I'll tell you what, if he sticks with Dixon and he has another stinker, that's going to put even more heat on him.
Yep.
I reckon people would wear a stinker from Lord more than a stinker from Dixon.
Yep.
So, yeah.
As we did last week, your X-Factor player for Port Adelaide this week, are you sticking with Jason Horne-Francis, or is there somebody that might jump out of the box for you?
Well, I think Butters will go. I reckon he'll just throw himself to Gaban, and if he goes, he goes. I wouldn't be surprised.
But taking injured
I know
players
that.
into finals.
Yeah, we know that. But hey, all clubs do it. Don't dare think at this time of the year.
Yep.
You'd be lucky to have 5 players on each side or fully fit. Everyone's carrying something.
Yep.
Yeah, so I take that also with a grain of salt. But look, I'll go for Watson for Hawthorn.
Yep.
And we might as well change it up. I'll go Butters for Port.
I'm going to stick with Rioli, but I'm a little concerned about the supply.
Yeah,
that's my biggest gripe there.
Fair.
All right, we'll talk about the Port and Hawks game in a minute. We'll stick with Port Adelaide, mate. I haven't had a chance to do the graphics yet, but I do have some sound. So are you ready for me to play it?
Go.
Rulebook Rant.
All right, mate, over to you for the rulebook rant.
I want to have a real crack at David Koch. The stupidity he came out with having a crack at the SANFL, blaming the SANFL effectively. Let's go through things here with a bit more logic and honesty and footy nous than the crap David Koch came out with. We want more. We want more. Are you bloody Oliver? Sort of thing. You got young Logan Evans at the start of the year, not drafted by anyone. He's a Nord player. No, he becomes a bloody Port player, and you get a try before you buy. Last year, don't dare say winning SANFL premierships and we're in it, we're the Magpies and this blah, blah, bullshit. You're the Port Power Reserves. The year before, Scott Lycett, best on ground against Central's, the elimination final. It's 4 points the difference at three-quarter time. What do? Take Lycett off. Fair enough. You've classifying your AFL side. I still think he needed the game time and the preparation. I reckon it was dumb what they did there.
Yep.
But let alone, you decided that. So don't dare come out with this thing questioning the SANFL. You finally got your first wooden spoon since 1900 and you're sooking. Like, someone comes bottom. Guess what? You can't bottom. If all players are available at AFL level, both sides do generally well at SANFL level.
Yep.
It ain't rocket science. If you get injuries, we fall away. Duh. Don't then say you want to recruit a player from each SANFL club. For goodness sake, get the stars out your eyes. Go back to breakfast. Go back to breakfast TV.
Fair call. I reckon I might need to find another little sound grab there for bang, mate. That's one of the best rulebook rants that we've had on the show. We've had a couple, but not too many. But I think there's a few that might agree with you there.
A bit of passion on that one.
Absolutely. All right, let's leave that one there. We'll cover that one and maybe a little bit later in the SANFL segment. But the rest of the AFL games, the Western Bulldogs were disappointing against Hawthorn, but Hawthorn were good.
Yeah, I admit I headed along to the Arkabar. Arkabar gets really good numbers watching the footy, and the atmosphere is fantastic. So had a look at the game there.
We might have to try and do a live broadcast from there one night. So we'll work on that.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
It was enjoyable there, but yeah, the Hawks were very impressive in that second half. Yeah, Western Bulldogs settled 4-2 up. I thought Western Bulldogs. I thought I'd tip them before the game.
Yep.
But Newcombe for Hawthorn was fantastic, and then the Wizard and how funny was it where they flitched over the crowd and all the Hawthorn supporters with the Harry Potter Wizards coat and all that. So
isn't it great that the crowds are getting
I
involved in
thought
this?
I thought it was brilliant.
You know,
the
obviously
Blues
Carlton,
boys with
the Blues boys in round 1 or
Blues
round
Brothers,
0,
yeah.
whatever it was.
Yeah.
And now Hawthorn with the hats. It's another dimension, isn't it?
No, I thought it was fantastic. So, look, good on him then. And he really played it. And they play up to it. Well, Ginniver's always going to play up to it. And how funny was him imitating with the stubby, opening the stubby for the the end when they'd won.
Well,
So
that was partly because the day before everyone was potting him for having a pub meal with family and friends. I mean, he's allowed to go out, you know.
So but it's as we so 14. I think it's 14 times the team who finished in the top 4 has lost the first week of the final by over 50 points and has come back and won the second week. Will this be Port's turn, or will they do a Anna Kournikova? Hello, out in straight sets.
Might have heard that voice on a radio station or two along the way.
Yeah, Timmy G was ready to kill me for that one, mate.
Fair enough. Hawthorn, for me, just their spread, their ability to get the ball, and Sammy Mitchell's got them playing like the Hawks of, the mid-2000s.
Well, I think it's even more different. It's just so speed and fun and all that. They seem to have embraced enjoying the game more than anyone else. It's not a chore for them. They're not looking like it's a job. They're actually out there to have fun, and they're not clocking on and clocking off and that side of things. And
so my question there is, and we'll bring this back to Adelaide, because we've obviously covered a lot of Port Adelaide, but we've got to cover Adelaide a little bit here, is that Adelaide have had a
very structured.
Structured right from the get-go. They get somebody in. It's that old school, which, we did talk about with our interviewee today, Craig Burton, in that some players played 100 games in the reserves, and Adelaide sort of have that mentality that they've got to play 20, 30 games in the second side before they get their opportunity in the top side, whereas Hawthorn have gone a couple of first-year draftees, bang, straight in.
And how good was Connor Deer,
Cowshadeer.
Son of Paul, and that grab he took, and that the Ronaldo sort of goal where he knew exactly what he was doing on that. He wanted to get his body that side, open it up. With brilliant, quick thinking, and he's got to be. He looks like he could be pretty special. And let's remember, Hawthorn have lost their main forward in Lewis has been injured the majority of the year.
Yep.
Day's their best player is out injured. Now I think you thought, geez, Hawthorn will fall away, but hey, they haven't yet.
Is that partly because of Mitchell's structure? That they
it
seem to
seems
be in
one
the right
soldier
spots.
out, one in, and whatever, and away they go. Now they lose Frost this week. Wait to see how big that is. Does that open up a Dixon? Does Dixon all of a sudden get more of a chance and all that?
Mm-hmm.
So, selection, who comes in, who does the roles, because it may well be the Ethan Phillips, the mid-season draft. He's only played one game.
Mm-hmm.
He's the favourite to come in at this stage. Yep. So wait and see. But
I mean, I know it's cliche, but it's going to be decided in the middle, isn't it? Because if Port get the ball going their way, they probably stretch Hawthorn a little bit. If Hawthorn get the ball going that way, they probably stretch as far as speed, talent, and creativeness against Port Adelaide. It's going to be an interesting matchup.
Yeah. We'll go on the SANFL later, but bizarrely, Central's had more inside 50s than Nord on the weekend. So it's not always that way.
No.
But, well, I still think it's a toss of the coin job. I really do.
Yep. All right, we'll get some tips in a minute, mate. But Sydney and the GWS Giants arguably played out probably one of the better finals or even best finals for quite some time. And Sydney had to do it the hard way, coming from behind to win by 6 points.
Yeah, I admit I was working at the home of football with the Amateur League games on Saturday, so I didn't get the chance to watch. I've watched highlights and watched other parts of the game I can find here and there. Incredible highlights. Heaney's mark, that is one of the all-time.
Absolutely.
It may well be number one.
Yep.
In terms of that extra high. It was incredible.
So he beats Jezelenko, you beauty?
I think so. I think it's incredible. And then the goal for him to tie the scores from the Papley wins the 1v2, gives off, and he's probably 70 metres out when he gets that
And he
ball.
burnt off his opponent too.
Oh, incredible. Yeah. His display was just remarkable. Campbell coming off the bench was coming on as a sub was pretty important. And, yeah, following it, just on the radio, helping with one of the bars at Nord, thought, nah, GWS are home here. And they burnt some goals. They should have sewn it up.
Yep.
Left that jaw just slightly ajar. Sydney didn't just unhinge the hinges. They smashed the crap out of the door.
Well, I did see a statistic that had, was it Papley, not Papley, Warner and Goulden, I think it was, were basically the last ranked players on the ground before three-quarter time. And then the last quarter, they were number 1 and number 2 respectively. Yeah. That's a huge weapon to have, but you don't want to be relying on it, do you?
No, it was...
So mate, my big question to you out of that game there is we have a new Mr. September.
Oh, he was fantastic. You know, poof.
You've already mentioned that he took that hanger, but he just seemed to be everywhere all day long.
He kept them in the game, in the game, and then he was the guy then burnt and won the game.
Do you see him being a little bit Dusty-esque as far as just taking that game by the scruff of the neck when he needed to?
He certainly got just unique attributes. He's a beautiful mover, and there's not a weakness in his game.
Yep.
And let's remember the start of the year, his first 2 months of the 6 to 8 rounds, he probably dominated as much as someone ever has. He could well at the end of round 8 have 20 Brownlow votes.
That's insane. We'll watch that one with a great interest, mate. I've been sort of drawing out this last one. I didn't really want to talk about it too much, but the Brisbane Lions absolutely making a mess of Carlton.
Well, I got home, and I admit I'd left before 9 and got home after 7, and Emma, the better half, was watching a murder mystery, so I wasn't going to say, can we put the footy on?
No, don't disturb that.
I kept the peace and was just following the scores in the background and felt like a little junior score, 4 goals, 5 to nothing.
Yep.
7 goals, 8 to nothing.
Yep.
9 goals, 6 to nothing.
Yep.
It was just crazy. It was
I had to look away.
Bizarre scoreline.
I had to look away at about, 6 goals, something to absolutely no score, and we didn't even look like it.
Oh, and then Carlton bring on De Koning, and he helps them get back into the game to some extent. Again, you're going, why in the hell didn't he start?
But they toyed with this all year long, and when De Koning actually started for most games and or Pittman was out, they actually looked better structurally and gave that extra number of a midfielder around the ball.
Yeah.
How can you get it so wrong? For me, Chincotta was probably the big surprise.
I didn't understand that. From the Carlton games I've watched this year, he's been really important. And
just to shut Neil down.
Well, why not have had him stand Zorko?
That was the other option as well.
I thought he would have. I thought for me, Carlton have got a perfect matchup for Zorko.
Yep.
And they didn't pick him. I just couldn't believe that.
So 2 questions there. Is he potentially maybe a little bit injured and we don't know about it? I'm not 100% sure on that. Or too many players coming back in that were perhaps a little underdone considering the team they took over, in that last round did the job without those players.
No, the last round they played St Kilda.
Sorry, the round before
against West Coast, but it was only West Coast.
Yep.
Look, I get that he would have gone, hang on, we've lost to St Kilda. I can't just go with the kids, rah, rah, rah. So I sort of get that, but Doherty after, that seemed to be a panic sort of move.
That was going to be my question. Yep.
We all love Doherty, what he's been through to come back. It's not just the knee, it's cancer, it's everything.
Yep.
And he's obviously a spiritual leader. Yeah, we get that, but geez, out of that, it seemed to be more panic-based than systematic.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Did you think 28 points flattered at Carlton in the end?
Yeah, I just think Brisbane put the cue in the rack.
Yep. Records all being set there. First team for a long, long time not to score in the first quarter. That's almost the same as Port Adelaide losing by 119 points. And anyone else getting a touch-up. It is, isn't it? Does it hurt them for next year, though?
Possibly. It was very much like the Richmond final against Port here. I think that was something like 8-6 to 1 goal.
Yeah, after the first quarter.
So it was very similar to that.
And they won the toss and went against the Breeze.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely unbelievable. All right, mate, we better talk this week's games. Friday night, 7:10 at the Adelaide Oval. Port Adelaide v Hawthorn, mate. Who you got?
Look, I've swung back and forth, and I listened to those stats that 14 times they've done it. Hawthorn without Frost, does that affect them? But you can't tip. In the end, at the moment, you really can't tip Port at all.
Yep.
You know, I think you have to go for Hawthorn, but
For me, Hawthorn's spread is going to be, I said it last week and I'm going to say it again, their ability to be able to spread on the outside so quickly gives them so many more options. And the amount of times you saw players standing on their own because they'd done all the hard work to spread quite quickly, opened up Western Bulldogs, and I think they're going to do exactly the same to Port Adelaide this
while
weekend.
we've given Heaney a huge rap, the other guy for mine was Newcomb from Hawthorn.
Yep.
He dominated against the Western Bulldogs, where they've got Bontempelli, Richards, etc. in the midfield, and he was. For mine, I thought he was clearly the four-quarter player out of that game. He's the other guy, so. And he's a mid-season draft who's come through, so
It's unbelievable, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right. Well, for me, I'm going Hawthorn. Who are you going, mate?
Yeah, I'll go for Port.
You're
hoping I'm wrong. Yeah,
you're going on the stats as well. Fair enough. Yeah. And the second game,
tipped them back and forth.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. And the second game, obviously, Saturday, the 14th September, 7 p.m. GWS Giants v the Brisbane Lions at NG Stadium in Sydney. Do we see the Giants ever using the SCG for a final?
I think it's ridiculous they're not there, personally. I'm a bit disappointed that Sydney, for mine, Sydney and GWS should have worked this out. You're not allowed to leave the room until this is sorted out.
A bit like the Adelaide Oval here between the SANFL and the Cricket Association.
I'm disappointed by that. I think it should be the SCG.
Yep. But does that give the Giants that home ground advantage?
Where they're playing, it still probably does, but it's going to look weird. 10,000 at a final. Out of that, for mine, it should be at the SCG.
Mm-hmm.
Look, I think GWS will rebound. GWS should have won last week. I think they'll rebound and beat Brisbane. But again, Brisbane, if Danaher, Hipwood, and Rayner, Bailey have on nights, they win. So it's it should be. Both games, toss the coin.
Absolutely. Gets down to accuracy, in the Lions last week almost kicked themselves out of it as far as behinds go, but they were well in control of the game.
Bit of pressure on Toby Green this week now. Yeah.
Do you think the Giants having to back up from such an emotional game? Because, I know they're professional footballers and they can come up one week to the next, but, you expend a lot of energy for that reward of a week off and you don't get it.
We might see that pretty early. If all of a sudden they're flat in the first 15 to 20 minutes, that might be enough.
Yep. All right, mate, we better take a very, very quick break. We were going to take talk some trade whispers, but I think we'll leave that to next week. But let's see what's coming up later this week. Coming up, coming up this week, yes, Glenelg doing well in the SANFL and Norwood getting through to a grand final. And we're going to have a little bit of a look at the AFLW. Both Adelaide teams getting some wins. And our retiring legend is Rory Sloane from the Adelaide Footy Club. Really looking forward to talking about his career.
You're listening to the Game On Podcast. We'll be right back after this short break.
Looking to buy or sell your home anywhere in Adelaide, from the hills to the sea? Meet Gary KRIEVS, your dedicated local agent from OUWENS CASSERLY Real Estate. With unparalleled knowledge of Adelaide's housing market and a commitment to exceptional service, Gary ensures a smooth and stress-free experience for all your real estate needs. Trust the expert, trust Gary KRIEVS at OUWENS CASSERLY Real Estate. Your next dream home awaits. Contact Gary today on 0422 071 317 or on email garyk@owens.com.au. And for more listings, please visit owenscasserly.com.au. Make it happen. All right, and we continue with the SANFL. Congratulations go to Harry Boyd, joint winner of the 2024 Magarey Medal, along with Will Snelling there from the Sturt Football Club. Huge year and certainly a worthy winner. We did talk about it briefly in the Open, but here's the chance to really talk about it.
Just really rapt for both of them. Really rapt that they both polled about the same, about obviously the same number of votes, but about the correct number of votes. I thought both had to be both had to be at least in the 30s, and I'm really glad they were. Also, too, congratulations to Harry winning the Bob Shearman Award last night, which is voted on by the coaches.
Yep.
So, I think he was the most dominant player and the most important player in the SANFL. I'm just glad that umpires did have the common sense to notice that. As I said, he's a quality character. There he is this morning back at Hampstead doing his physio placement. He's there at 9 o'clock this morning. He's a quality individual who cares about other people. His empathy and engagement and getting it. He's as I mentioned earlier with the inclusive league, and that's Harry down to a T. And Will Snelling's had a great year for Sturt. Probably was a little bit disappointing in the Cutler final. I don't think he got the ball enough in the right spots to hurt the opposition. But geez, showed a hell of a lot of character. Went through personal tragedy, losing his father during the year. Also, it's bloody hard coming back from the AFL.
Well, that was what I was going to say. Yes.
Let's give Will Snelling his due. He got pigeonholed as that poor small forward, pressure forward at Port and at Essendon.
Mm-hmm.
Comes back, gets a chance to play in the midfield, and had a great year. So wrap that the two guys who should have finished 1 and 2 did.
Yep.
So yeah.
So that leads me into my question about those two players. Harry Boyd, I did hear an interview with him today, and we've talked to him obviously on the podcast here as well, but we didn't go into his personal thoughts on his career, and he doesn't have a massive burning ambition to play AFL. It's not something on the list, and you've sort of mentioned that in what you're saying there, that he rolls up for work at 9 a.m. this morning, really thinking about career after football.
He's pretty switched on.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he wants a balance. He likes a balanced life of not just footy.
Yep. Even though he's a bit of a nuffy and looking up the opposition player
Yeah.
for the following week, it's probably that ideal balance, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. And as I said, and then the last minor round game, Nord have beaten Nord. Nord have 8 goals up.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a North guy's decided he's going to have a ping for goal after siren. He was well over 50 metres out. There's Harry Boyd sprinting from centre half forward at the other end to get down to the goal line to compete, to try and block the ball to going through.
Yep.
And I said to him, I just love you, Harry. I love your commitment to having done that. Hey, percentage could decide top spot yet, Malcolm.
Yep.
The second last minor round game.
Yes.
Sorry, that was.
No, that's right.
So that's just his attitude. His attitude is incredible. Obviously, I know him a lot more than Will Snelling.
Of course.
Rap for him. And then Nick Rokar saluting in the Sandover medal. Again, a joint tie last night. But, rap for Rokes as well.
Could you imagine Rokar in this Norwood side at the moment? Oh, it'd be fantastic, wouldn't it?
But just rap. Rokes, his girlfriend's from WA and she wanted to go back to WA. A couple other things as well. And no complaints with Norwood whatsoever, but decided to go back. And look, Peter Balderstone, I did get a phone call asking about Nick because his wife is a welfare officer at Swan District. So he asked me about Rokes and delighted to be able to say, hey, no, he's a quality individual and talk to him about Rokes as a person.
Yep.
And he rang me back a couple of months later and said, Jesus, Rubble, you nailed that.
Yep.
And so, the Swan District's faithful love him as well. And good luck. So he's got the prelim final this week against Peel. So, yeah, good luck to Nick and the Swan Districts this week.
Absolutely. And conversely, Will Snelling, do you think he might be on a couple of AFL clubs' radar, or does he
I doubt
sort
it,
of go, no?
I doubt it because he's already been on 2. Not that many get a third chance. I think more the point is both clubs in terms of Port and Essendon should be now going, geez, why didn't we have a decent look at him in the midfield as well instead of pigeonholing him?
Well, that's why I asked whether it may be an opportunity.
Maybe.
There's a lot of young guys coming in and it makes it hard, doesn't it?
It's probably Tasmania. That's the sort of side. Say if Tasmania were coming in next year, then he probably does. So, yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to last week's games. In a bit of a tight tussle for a couple of quarters there. Sturt and Glenelg battled it out, but Glenelg ended up just getting the chocolates about halfway through that third quarter and then really went on with it in the last.
They did, and look, there's one thing though. I think umpiring wasn't too bad in that game, but geez, McBean's still got a couple. He's got a few of the umpires bluffed at SANFL level, and yeah, they're umpiring the player, not the contest.
Yep,
a couple of times, and he got a couple of ridiculous free kicks, and that way, and then at 3/4 time, Sturt are a goal up. You're thinking, oh, well, this is interesting. Last week they got 5-3-0 in the last quarter.
Yep.
A bit of pressure there, and sure enough, Glenelg were good in that last quarter. They played some really good footy.
Some very clean footy.
Yeah.
Yep.
Where I thought Glenelg were just too good. I didn't think it was I didn't think it was a collapse mentally as it was against Centrals.
Yep.
Where Sturt still had a lot of ball and chances and then just blew it in the last quarter where Glenelg just outplayed them.
Yep.
But I think now it's 10 goals 7 to 1 point in the last quarters, the combined scores, something like along those lines. If it's not 10-7, it's pretty close.
Yep.
It's 10 goals to 1 point.
Yep.
So put it that way, it's just ridiculous that they've been in front at 3/4 time at both games. And if you'd said 8 minutes into the qualifying final when Central Districts had only kicked 1 goal, Sturt will go out at straight sets. Well, geez, I don't think Hansi Cronje would have borrowed, or Dennis DeLee and Rod Marsh would have grabbed your wallet.
The bookmakers would have been lining up to take your money on that bet if it had come.
Yeah.
Sturt obviously almost doing a little bit of what Port Adelaide did in the AFL with 13 wins in a row and then not able to go on with it. Does that change things as far as Sturt goes? They've had a good year but just haven't been able to capitalise? Because obviously Nord, Sturt and Glenelg have probably been the 3 standouts.
Yeah, it's probably one thing. It was a bit ironic where Sturt at the start of the year, because of the turf being relayed at Unley,
Had to play a lot
played
of
all games away. So
Yep.
they came home with a heap of games at Unley Oval. Well, I'm not convinced all those games playing on the little oval at Unley to then get onto Adelaide Oval. And they certainly got exposed by Central District's spread in the last quarter, well and truly. And Glenelg, I think, were cleaner than Central, where Central's just was just pace and just get on, kept force it forward. And they look slow and again, I think they lack a key forward.
Yep.
But they've been managed to grind out wins at Unley. Well, all of a sudden, Adelaide Oval is a different commodity.
Spiritual home ground. All right, let's move on to the other final that was played. Nord getting up over a bit of a plucky Central Districts early on there. They got off to a good start, Centrals, slowed the ball down, probably took away a little bit of Harry Boyd's dominance early.
To their intense credit, because to say Harry Boyd was best on ground both times we played Centrals. In fact, the second game against Centrals at Nord, he should have got all 6 votes. Don't just worry about the 3. He was the best 3 players on the ground.
Yep.
But he certainly was easily the best both times we played Centrals. They set up a bit differently. They roved off Harry. Bo Thomas probably provided a better contest than what they'd had earlier in the year. So, to Central's credits, they actually won the clearances and had more inside 50s.
Yep.
Now, it's pretty incredible when you have more inside 50s, but the other team wins easily.
Yep.
So full credit the Nord defence there where...
Well, that slingshot off of halfback held them in good stead as the game got longer and longer and longer.
Well, so Donnelly did a very good job on Grace.
Yes.
Lord did a very good job on Isaac Dudley.
Yep.
And you had the whole defence in terms of James Rewalt-Hurd contributing, the whole back six, Matty Ling on the halfback line. Hitman Harding was very good.
Yep. He copped a bit of a knock there late in the third quarter or early in the fourth. Looked, bit on the arm. I was like, I hope he hasn't broken a wrist,
okay.
but everything's okay.
Yeah, I think so.
And their defence, like you said, stood up tremendously to get the win there.
So, so Nord were good. I thought Billy Cootie was very important. Probably got cleaner as the game went on. He was probably a bit rushed in the first quarter. Then kicked a couple of goals as well as the midfield.
Release the shackles a little bit?
Yeah, I think so. And just that clean running through the middle with a long goal and, hey, we're here. And, Tristan Binder, a couple of goals. Didn't have a huge thing.
No, but he bobbed up when he needed to.
Yeah, but it was also Nord picked the one extra big. So Finn Hurd came in. So therefore they split their game time up a bit. So that probably hurt Tristan's chances of dominating.
Yep.
So Isaac 12-3 contributed. So, yeah, look, I think full credit to Paul Thomas in terms of he's got that central side, which I don't think they're anywhere near as much ability as the other three sides in the comp. They're still playing in a prelim final this year, this week. Look, I think Glenelg will be too good.
Yep.
But Centrals will crack in and have a crack.
They were certainly a surprise for me in the first quarter against Nord. And what are your thoughts on Harry Boyd after quarter time? Because the game plan sort of changed, that he went for the bigger hit over the back and allowed his mids to run onto it. It seemed to be a pre-planned change.
Yeah, a little bit. I thought he still could have mixed it up as well. Look, he was still influential, but he just didn't dominate like he has.
Yep.
He didn't obliterate the game like he has other games. He was still very important.
Obviously, Central's put a bit of work into him. All right.
Yep.
Nord obviously going through to a grand final there. All right, let's talk about the preliminary final this week very, very quickly. The Dogs v Glenelg. You've stated this pretty much all the way through the season. You think Glenelg's still the team to beat, and they keep their back-to-back chances alive, not only after getting up over the Eagles, but then in a pretty tight tussle against Sturt. Now they've got another challenge in front of them, the Central
District. And I admit I haven't
Club.
backed off on that, even when they're falling away. I still thought there's that much ability. Now, Hosey was going to play and had diarrhea, so it wasn't his knee which kept him out.
Yep.
He was crook. So I would think he'll play this week. So that's going to be interesting to see. And look, he's going to be underdone and all that, but the big thing about Hosey, if he gets 6 kicks, that's 3 goals. So Reynolds and McBean and their forward line. Allen was very good. Curran was good. Still, there's a lot. Cole Gerloff had his moments.
Yes.
Yeah, they were very good overall.
All right, well, who are you picking, mate? You're picking Glenelg?
Yeah, I am.
I'm going to stick with Glenelg as well. If, again, the way it goes, if Glenelg do get up and Nord get up crowd-wise, how much are you expecting at Adelaide Oval for that final? Because I reckon there'll
be late 30s, I think.
Yeah, there'll be a fair few
so.
that'll come out of the woodwork, that's for sure.
I still say the only SANFL game, which should be, is the grand final.
Yep.
I still think the other games should be at the suburban grounds like WA are doing.
Yep.
I just think that's the way it should be.
Totally agree. I think there was about 11,000 at the game on the weekend.
There was certainly more there for Glenelg and Sturt. It did thin out after that.
Yep.
I've got to be honest.
Yep.
I just still think that game should have been at the parade on Sunday.
It would have been a magnificent atmosphere. All right, just one last thing on the SANFL. The Team of the Year, Jade Rawlings coach. I think we pretty much will agree with that on the basis that Nord have been fit and firing all year, but also a successful state campaign against Victoria and WA.
Yeah, they've just made it blanket. Whoever's minor premier gets the Team of the Year coach.
But he would have got it anyway,
yeah, I personally think there's a real case for Paul Thomas to get that central side with what they've got for them to finish as high, I think he's been incredible. I think it's a massive thing. But if you don't appoint the guys top, it just makes it too much.
Sure. Bain and Lowe obviously named in that side as well. Jack Hurd, Tom Donnelly, and, of course, the Magarey medalist, Harry Boyd.
Yes, yeah. So, and Sturt had 6, actually. So it was quite interesting to watch there in terms of how many.
So if that team was playing today with both Nord and Sturt players in it, if they won it, it would be a grand old flag.
Yeah, exactly. At least, that way it wasn't an easy Saturday morning. Sturt reserves didn't beat Nord. They absolutely annihilated Nord in the second semi, but at least we still had the Nord song sung and all that.
Fair enough. Speaking of the reserves, I see Matty Panos played, got through, obviously, but can we see him getting up for a grand final?
Play again this week. For mine, he's got to move better. Look,
and as we know, second up is always tougher than first up.
Yeah.
It's going to be a hard team to break into. But each one of those Nord guys would probably give up his spot. That's probably where Nord are at.
Yeah, it's more said that way than means that way.
Yep.
Look, I love the King from 2022, but it's 2 years later, and having played so little footy, you're going to try and play your first game in 16 weeks in a grand final.
Yep.
And with carrying a partial tear in there, and look, unfortunately I won't get to see the reserves this week, so I won't be able to I'll be working at Nord, so I don't see that this week, but I'll obviously be following it very closely.
Absolutely. All right, mate, let's leave the SANFL there. We'll quickly run through the AFLW. We'll probably just stick with the Adelaide and Port Adelaide teams this week, but Port Adelaide win the curtain raiser at the MCG, and a big win for the club, not only on a big round as well. But some injuries are going to play a part.
Yeah, a bit there, but I'll tell you what, Western Bulldogs after 2 games have got a percentage of 12. And I'm sorry, I did watch a bit of that game, and Port were okay. Don't get me wrong. I think Port are going to improve, and their momentum is upward. But, geez, Western Bulldogs, they were Scheisenhausen.
A little bit scary on that front. Adelaide obviously getting up against Fremantle. Fremantle over in Fremantle there. Again, some of their key players that have been around for many, many years are just complementing this new group of youth coming through, and Matty Clark's got them firing again.
Yeah, this is going to be around the mark, but pretty incredible that neither of the teams playing Adelaide kicked the goal. It's not a great stat. So, yeah, both teams, none for.
Yes, absolutely.
Jeff Boycott would have been wrapped with that. None for 6 and none for 4 at stumps.
Yep. Now, Port Adelaide play the Dockers this weekend at the Alberton Oval, 4:05 there on Saturday. What are your tips, mate, from what you've seen so far?
Yeah, I'll go for Port because it's here as well.
Yep,
so,
I'm going to go for Port as well. And Adelaide playing at home as well against Hawthorn at Thomas Farms Oval there out at Sturt.
Yeah, pretty incredible when you think of that the game's here, and if Sturt had won, would have been a great day for the Sturt administration, that you would have been there almost quick, can you leave because we want to get Adelaide Oval.
Yep,
so
start the car.
Obviously they don't have to do that and all that, but I'll go for Adelaide at home.
I'm going to go for Adelaide as well, although the Hawthorn, a bit like their male counterparts, that infectious celebrations and game is just flowing through the club at like wildfire at the moment. Yeah. All right, let's move on to our retiring legend for this week. We wanted to give him his own sort of segment here, which is Rory Sloane from the Adelaide Footy Club. Early career, obviously, moving over from Victoria. He supported the St Kilda Football Club as a junior, part of the TAC side of the Eastern Rangers in the under-18s. He was drafted by Adelaide with pick 44 of the 2008 national draft. What a career. Had to fight his way in during an okay time at Adelaide.
Yeah, and a halfback flank to start with before he eventually moved on the on-baller. And probably not so much the footy, it was more just the quality of him, that what you saw is what you got. Did a couple of junior coaching clinics with him.
Yep.
And exactly that. He was like a bloody Energizer battery. Run around with the kids and just fully into it. I admit, as the few of us as males, when Belinda came to pick him up, we weren't concentrating on Rory. I'll give you the big tip.
Nah, fair enough. Following a mid-season surgery for the same issue in 2021, Sloane went under surgery again for a detached retina. Although his recovery appeared to be progressing better in 2021, Sloane announced his retirement in April 2024, choosing to prioritise his long-term health and well-being. I think, a bit like the concussion side of things, I think we're a lot more understanding these days of these type of issues.
Oh, you can't muck around with eyes, too. They're really... You had that surgery and then to have another one, I think, obviously, I think that's the chances of more damage and then permanent damage, not being able to see, was reasonably high. And it was, look, a decision which probably, in retrospect, should have even been made quicker, really.
Yep. One last thing on Rory Sloane. Do you see him staying on at Adelaide in the coaching box? Because I think his IP is invaluable.
Oh, he'll certainly be in demand around the traps. Whether he wants to move back to Melbourne, I think Belinda did have the TV stuff over in Adelaide here. I'm not sure how that's going.
Yep.
So it probably depends what's happening there off the ground as the kids get older. The parents around back interstate, as we know, plays a part. So, we'll
see how
I'm
that
sure
goes.
that's a decision for him and Belinda to make.
Absolutely. All right, mate, let's take a very, very quick break. Coming up this Friday, Past Legends, Craig Burton, Part 1 from the North Adelaide Footy Club and West Adelaide as well. And on our local Flashbacks, Jackson Callow from the Nord Footy Club talking state football representation.
You're listening to the Game On Podcast. We'll be right back after this short break.
A dents and scratches putting a dent in your day? Introducing Roger Steen Crash Repairs Adelaide, your trusted solution for automotive woes. With over 2 decades of expertise, Roger Steen Crash Repairs guarantees top-notch service, restoring your vehicle to its former glory in no time. From minor dings to major collisions, our skilled technicians handle it all with precision and care, using state-of-the-art equipment and techniques.
Roger Steen Crash Repairs saved my car. It looks brand new.
Fast, friendly and reliable. I wouldn't trust anyone else with my vehicle. Don't let accidents slow you down. Visit Roger Steen Crash Repairs Adelaide at 14 Penner Avenue, Glynde, for quality service you can count on. And here's a special offer just for our listeners. Mention this podcast and receive a $100 discount on your repair. Roger Steen Crash Repairs Adelaide. Excellence in every repair.
Flashbacks.
All right, and today in our Flashbacks segment, we're going to have a bit of a look at the Hawthorn and Port Adelaide final from 2014 at the MCG. Hawthorn winning that game by 3 points. Port Adelaide desperately unlucky, but only had itself to blame for inaccuracy in front of goal. That saw it finish the match with 7 more scoring shots than Hawthorn. Obviously, Hawthorn were pretty dominant during that period and then got the win over Port Adelaide on this occasion. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the next couple of minutes.
It's got 6.
Down the bottom there as we have another look at that goal from Jared Ruffhead. Sensational stuff. Jordan Lewis has been subbed out of this game. Of course, he's been sensational all night. 22 possessions. Jonathan Simpkin into
wide,
the
3-on-1 in favour of Port. Broadbent to Need, held onto it a little too long. He tried to get through there, Needy.
Geez, that's a great cap.
Bruce was there. Spanger pushes off, gives Hale a chance. Here's Ruffhead. Can he kick goal number 7? No, not just at the moment. The sub Simpkin, Langford, little loopy handball, Gunston, and now Smith. Isaac Smith from well within Smith range. He lets it all hang out, and he just milked a beautiful big-time goal. Hawthorn by 22.
Will Langford's had a big second half. He's done a great job on Travis Boak and winning a lot of the footy himself.
Bruce from the intersection of the 50 and the boundary. Gunston might play on goal. 28-point Hawthorn lead. Biggest margin of the game.
Sean Burgoyne.
Have a look at the one-on-one matchups. Burgoyne pumps it long and wide. Markey, but he doesn't waste any time. Brilliant smother Hodge. Oh, look at Jonas go in. What a smother from Luke Hodge.
They're timing the ball. You guys here, Hawthorn.
That replay there of Luke Hodge, the captain. He might have just got his team into a grand final.
Schultz can kick it inside 50. He takes a bounce. It'll be a big kick. Here comes Monfries. Monfries and Lake. Lake and Monfries. 25 seconds to go. 5 seconds. 2 seconds.
I thought he was going to play holding the ball.
Hawthorn have made the grand final. Hawthorn have won. A promoter's dream.
So, mate, not a happy hunting ground for Port Adelaide on that occasion. Port dominated inside 50, 17-7, and we've already talked about that today in the SANFL. You don't necessarily have to dominate those inside 50s.
No, it can happen, as we said with Nord on the weekend, less inside 50s, but defence got on top. So, yeah, if cut defenders and then you run it out, like Geelong probably were known for that, for scoring off the slingshot off half-back as much as anyone.
Yep.
So, yeah, it does happen.
Little interesting statistic here. Sam Mitchell, 27 possessions. This was his usual prolific self, despite some close attention from Port tagger Kane Corns. Some of these names on here, going back and looking at it, Grant Birchall, Bruce, Burgoyne, Gibson, Gunston, like some absolute guns through that period. And Gunston's still playing.
So is Bruce.
So is Bruce.
Bruce is his 300th this week.
Yep.
I would think he would stay as the Hawthorn sub this week. So, he'll be important late in that game as well. So, and Gunston's his games last year with Brisbane, and his last year at Hawthorn have been average. Then his games at Brisbane, you thought, why are you recruiting him back? That's going against your whole philosophy of the young kids and all that. But he's turning out to be pretty important.
Just proves that you need to have that stability, senior stability there.
And they're saying that he's had a huge influence on Deer through having gone through both their fathers having passed away very close together.
Yep.
So he's been the real guiding influence for Deer. And Deer speaks, I heard an interview with him where he was saying this and this about Hawthorn and that. But as soon as he got on Gunston, his voice almost changed.
Yep.
It was, real, hey, this guy's been huge.
And Sammy Mitchell was obviously involved in that game, and now he's involved in this game here, and could be the difference. Port Adelaide obviously had some guns through there as well. Boak, Corns, the usual suspects. Robbie Gray, and Tommy Jonas obviously went on to become captain of Port Adelaide as well. We've talked about it before. It's going to be an interesting game this weekend coming up. All right, let's move on to the extra time big finish.
Extra time big finish.
All right, mate, let's whiz through these pretty quickly. In the tennis, the US Open concluded, and Australia played some amazing tennis during the tournament. A couple went out early, but a couple went quite deep, and including the doubles, All-Australian finalists and winners.
Yeah, well done to Thompson and Purcell.
Yep.
Fantastic result. Runners-up at Wimbledon, seeded 7 and came through and won it to win their first Grand Slam. And Thompson had a huge US Open, went through to the 4th round, easily his longest run in a Grand Slam, and goes through to win the doubles. And well done to Sinner and Sabalenka as well.
Obviously, those two won. We did have this on the run sheet for last week to talk about Sinner. He did get found twice for a breach of the drug policy, and yet both times he's been let off.
Yeah, you'd like to have more information in front of you because it doesn't add up with the way it reads at the moment. So, yeah.
Yep. And Sabalenka obviously winning a tournament there. All right, let's move on to the NRL very, very quickly, mate. It's finals week number 1. I'm not going to talk about all the games this week, but the Melbourne Storm, once again, are favoured to win the NRL Premiership. It is insane.
Yeah, it is. They are. They've got a case for being the best sporting club in Australia in the last 10 to 20 years, even considering they lost premierships and all that. And yet you thought that might have broken a club, but no, they've come. Yeah, they're incredible.
Obviously, they're taking on the Sharks this weekend.
Yeah.
The Panthers and the Roosters doing battle. The Cowboys and the Knights and the Bulldogs and the Seagulls. I reckon that the Knights, or maybe even the Bulldogs, might have just scraped in by winning their last game of the season. Yeah. All right, let's move on to soccer. Sam Kerr rumours are untrue, and she sets the record straight. She will return when she is ready.
Yeah. I think that's enough.
Do you think she's got the runs on the board to do that?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. I totally agree. Yep. All right, let's finish off with a couple of general questions to finish this off. Cameron Johnson, who was actually on Melbourne's list, I reckon he was drafted in 2011, somewhere around that. His season with the Pittsburgh NFL team could be over after just one game with a knee injury. He went to punt the ball, and his legs got tangled up. It looked a bit nasty. He just signed a $9 million contract.
So it might get him through. He might be able to afford a drink this week. Yeah.
Could he potentially put some money down on the podcast here and help us out a little bit?
Just a tad.
Maybe. All right, let's move on to stolen medals returned to Shea Bolton. 2 premiership medals are returned after being stolen. Some good work by the police, obviously, to track them down. Amazing, not only one, that they were pinched, but 2, how they were recovered.
Bizarre.
It's just absolutely bizarre, isn't it? And to finish us off, mate, I know we didn't talk a lot of cricket tonight because of all the AFL and SANFL finals, but Steve Smith, should he give up his opening position for the series coming up against India?
For mine, he does look far better back at 4, and
so who opens?
I think that's then the problem because you can't play if he goes back to 4.
Where does Smith?
Head's 5, so therefore Green and Marsh. I would have opened with Green against India.
Yep.
Green last year against West Indies.
Yes.
So I thought I would have done that. He went to 4, so it's really up in the air.
So do the 2 South Australian players in Carey and Head unlock this or have the key to unlock this logjam? Does Trav move up to the front of the order, and does Carey then assume Trav's role in the middle of the order with the aggression?
Nah, he'll start. They'll leave him at 7. Alex won't be moved. I don't. For mine, Trav hasn't got the technique to open against the moving ball at international level.
Yep.
For mine, he's a see ball, hit ball at 5.
Yep.
I wouldn't bat him.
Fair call.
For mine, he bats 5, 5 or 5.
So you're on the Cameron Green bandwagon for potentially opening. Potentially. We'll obviously follow that up, but it was just something that came across the desk, and I thought it was interesting.
Yeah, we'll get hold of Rhino this week too. I'll give Rhino a call.
Absolutely, we'll get him on for 5 good minutes in the clubhouse and spend 5 minutes with him. Obviously, congratulating him on his position. All right, mate. We're going to wind things up there. We'll leave the good, the bad, the ugly for this week. But once again, we thank our special guest.
I think we've covered that to a large extent
with the rulebook rant. Yeah. We thank our special guest Craig Burton from the North Adelaide and West Adelaide footy clubs. And as per usual, mate, we promise to do better. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, mate.
See ya.
In this crazy world we live in, we all need the distraction. Enjoying the show? Like, rate, and subscribe. Hook up and connect with us on social media at Sportscast SA. We'll see you next time on Game On.